Hi everyone, welcome to today's Transformation Talk. I am here today with Marianne Emma Jeff. She is the Managing Director and Head Business Coach of the Women's Business Momentum Center in Pasadena, California, and she is a dear friend of mine. And I'm so excited to have you here. Thanks, Marianne.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here, Alana. Thank you.
So there was an event that you held last summer that I spoke at, and it was called Her Story. And at Her Story, you told your story. Mm-hmm. And it was so interesting to me because we met, and I remember vaguely, I think it was around the time I moved to Ventura, that you were doing your one-woman show on giving up red wine.
Yes, the Zen of Red Wine.
The Zen of Red Wine, but I had no idea really what was happening for you. So can you tell us a little bit give us a little bit of the story?
Yes, of course. And to give it context, Her Story, the women's conference, is 20 women telling their story. And each of the women at the conference that I do each year answer the question, I used to, and now I. And that's the common thread between everyone. And at last minute, I needed to step in. I wasn't going to speak because I'm speaking all the time. But someone dropped out, and I'm really glad that I did actually speak. And so what I spoke about was that I used to live unconsciously, and now I choose to live consciously. And it's been a long journey for me. It's been... My goodness, I think the unconsciousness started when I was around 11 years old, and now I'm 43, I think. I'm not very good with ages. And so you can see it's been quite a journey. And when I met Alana at the time that she was talking about, I was going through one of the phases of moving more into being conscious, and that was the phase of actually giving up red wine. It had been quite a journey. I don't know. Do you want me to go into it?
Yeah. Tell us a bit about it. Mm-hmm.
So the journey for me had been a weight on my shoulders for a very, very long time. When I was 11, I started drinking. I would have, in England, you're from England, everybody drinks. It's accepted. So I would have a shandy, which is beer and 7-Up at the pub. And at my dad's wedding, my parents are divorced and they both remarried and everybody gets along really nicely. And at my dad's wedding, there was champagne, and I was having sips of champagne from one person to the next. And by the end of the day, I was completely wasted. And so I grew up from 11 onwards with alcohol being this fun thing. It was associated with fun in my family and going out, and it was very acceptable. But I think I was using it to deal with the pain of my parents divorcing and other things, growing up at that age of your life. I was using it to become numb for some of the things that were going on. My dad ended up moving to America. I was in England when I was, I think it was about 12. And so there was even more reason for me to numb things out. And I chose alcohol to do that with, to start with. Continued to do that, and I could tell story after story after story about my exploits, and some of them are quite amusing about alcohol. But when I moved to America, then I began to graduate to other drugs and really began to becoming even more unconscious. And I was a really great functioning drinker and drug user. I would get up at 6 in the morning. I continued on this path when I was 32. No, I had my daughter when I was 35, and I didn't drink while I was pregnant. I was a good pregnant mother. But then the minute I gave birth, and I would ask this question again and again and again while I was pregnant, when can I have a glass of red wine? How soon after I give birth can I have a glass of red wine? And my parents were all asking too, because they wanted to know. So there was a big cooler at the hospital, and it had chocolate cake in it because I had gestational diabetes. And so I couldn't have sugar. But they said as soon as I gave birth, I could have red wine and I could have chocolate cake. And there was champagne. This is in a cooler waiting for me to give birth. Unfortunately, it took 29 hours for me to give birth. So it was sitting in that cooler for a while. But that unconsciousness was carrying on. Even though I was functioning, even though I was very happily married to my husband, there were areas of my life that felt that I was trying to numb out. But of course, in retrospect, we can say this. When it's happening, when we're in the thick of it, it's not so easy to recognize this. After my daughter was born, I still have always had that nagging feeling. I really did wish I don't want to drink tomorrow, or next week I'm not going to drink. But I was drinking a lot. I was drinking a big liter bottle of red wine every single night. And if someone came over and they would have a glass or two of wine with me, I knew that would mean I wouldn't have enough for me, and I'd end up having to open another bottle of wine. And if I didn't have another bottle, I would start thinking about these things. And it was taking over my life, and it was a weight. It was like this big tree across the road is the best way I can describe it, because whatever I was doing, I began getting into coaching and training to become a coach. And the training involves coaching and looking at yourself and working with a coach. And so everything I would look at would lead me back to this big tree in the road of, you know what, I'm drinking too much. And this isn't the good way to be living. I'm a Buddhist, and I took the 5 precepts, probably, oh my goodness, about 15, 20 years ago. And one of the precepts that you take is not to become intoxicated. But even the monks would find me loopholes. They would say, well, it doesn't mean that you can't drink. It just means that you don't become intoxicated. But I knew I wasn't drinking and not getting intoxicated. So that loophole wasn't really working for me. So here I am hitting the tree. So it didn't matter what I was doing in my life. All roads were leading me back to this tree that was blocking my path. And it finally began to just become too much for me. I wasn't doing drugs anymore. It was simply the alcohol. But it was just really weighing on me. I felt guilty every night when I would go to bed. When I woke up in the morning, I would feel guilty. I'd feel pretty crappy. And then we're walking down the aisle in the grocery store, and my daughter, who was probably about 3 or 4 at the time, is like, look, it's mommy's aisle. And it was the wine aisle. And these little pieces, these little things just didn't feel good. And I knew that this wasn't the way that I wanted to live. But I also really was scratching my head about this. I was about to turn 40. I couldn't possibly even begin to imagine celebrating my 40th birthday party without drinking. It was not even a concept I could imagine. How could it be fun? What would I do? How could I live without this? And it got to the point that my husband was going away for the weekend with my daughter. I decided to stay home, and I surrounded myself with all the books that I had, all the self-help books. And I was really determined to find the answer that weekend. And of course, I was drinking through it. And I'm looking through the pile after pile of book and picking the book up, and it was frenzied searching. And then I suddenly realized, what the bleep is the question? It wasn't about finding an answer. I suddenly realized I had this connection, thank you to the universe, this aha light bulb moment when I realized, what the bleep is the question? And I reached down and I picked up Gary Zukav's Seat of the Soul. I looked in the index, and there was a chapter on addiction. And I turned to that chapter, and there was something I saw in there. And I realized that what I really wanted to do was choose to live consciously. And before it had all been about giving something up. Well, I can't give it up. And the idea of giving something up, the path beyond that didn't seem very attractive. But when I thought of getting something, of life improving by me doing this, beyond the, oh, I'll feel better, but the living consciously was the thing that I truly wanted. And when I realized that, that was it. I never drank again. And it's been, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. And it's so not a thing. If I think of myself as an alcoholic, I wouldn't be able to do this. And please don't get me wrong. I think that that has served a lot of people. But for me, that label just puts me into the negativity as opposed to the positivity of choosing to live consciously. Since then, I've then found the other layers beyond that. the other layers of unconsciousness that I've been stripping away so that I'm living even more consciously. Because even though you're not drinking, there's still ways that we can be unconscious in our lives, whether it's through food or TV or numbing ourselves in different ways. So it's been just this wonderful journey, and that's just been one phase of it with the Zen of red wine.
Wow. Wow. I love that you were able to switch that in your head, the going from the lack to gaining consciousness.
Yes.
That's so important. Yeah. I did that with food when I wanted to lose weight after I put on so much weight with Benjamin and everything and the stillbirth. And it really was about, if I feel like I'm depriving myself, I can't do it.
Why do we want to do that if we're depriving ourselves? It's not sexy. It's not attractive. We need to be motivated by things that sound really great. And it really ties into all the positive psychology that's going on about really focusing on the positive rather than the negative. Because we know, yes, drinking or eating badly is bad for our health and all of these other things. But when we really see something that we're going to get at the other side of it that means something to us. And consciousness has been something that's been really important to me for my life. And so, I just love peeling off more and more layers of it. It's a wonderful journey to be on.
So can you tell us a little bit more about what you specifically mean by consciousness? What does that look like in your life?
You know, I feel like living in the present moment is the holy grail. That's how I feel. When I'm working with a client, if there is a challenge that we're working on, I will ask questions, we will explore, we will drill down, we will drill down, we will drill down. But underneath everything, what it boils down to is, how about if you live in the present moment? And it's the antidote for everything. If someone is afraid of public speaking, it's about being in the present moment, because the fear of public speaking is when you're in your head and you're not in the present moment. When I'm working with a client on networking or getting out there and promoting their business, it's that building their confidence, and they don't feel very confident. At the bottom of it is really being in the present moment, because when we're really talking to someone, we're really connecting with someone, there's no room for that itty-bitty shitty committee in our head. There is only room for what is going on right now. And so when I talk about living consciously, I talk about really being present in the moment and making choices mindfully rather than making choices because it's just habit or unconsciousness. Mm-hmm. We need to, of course, have times where we make unconscious choices. If we were conscious about every single choice we made, we'd never get out of bed in the morning. We'd never get out of the house. We need some things that are by habit. But to be raising our awareness is what I try to do with everything when I'm working with clients or when I'm working on myself. It's about raising your awareness, because one of my guiding principles for the business is awareness is the doorway to possibility and change. It is through being aware of things. And sometimes they aren't pretty. And sometimes, you know, it's about that this just isn't working for me and I'm drinking too much and I feel crappy and my daughter is growing up thinking of this being how mommy is, with a glass of red wine in her hand. There's so many pictures of me in the little paddling pool with my elbow on the side with my glass of red wine. And it was life. I remember I used to smoke and it was the same thing. I would think about if I was going to someone's house or a party, where am I going to be able to go smoke? Can I smoke that? Do I have any cigarettes? When am I going to have my next cigarette? And I would do the same thing with drinking. And so I was not in the moment. I was not living in my life. And life, I am so in love with life that it was really difficult for me to be stuffing that down. And to the point where I talked about it, her story, when I was 19, I was stuffing it down so much that I actually tried to kill myself twice, because it was the pain and the unconsciousness that I just could not handle. The numbing itself was killing me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It does. Our souls just get to the point where there's so much pain. There's only so much pain we can take.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And so how has this journey of, I mean, you've talked a little bit about how you work with your clients, but how has this journey into consciousness, into a raised awareness, how do you feel like it's impacted your work, your business?
I have a strong desire. I love what I do, first of all. I eat, sleep, love it, passionate about it. And without the most amazing husband ever and daughter and family to support me, I would not be able to do what I do. I mean, it's been quite the journey, and things are just exploding with the Women's Business Momentum Center. The reason I think it's so successful is because I'm creating what I would like. And I, as a coach with my training, worked with a lot of different coaches and had some great aha moments and worked with some really phenomenal coaches. But at the end of the day, I felt like I was missing structure that I've created in my Strong Start business program. But the trick is having structure with flexibility within it, so that you can have those discussions, so the client can actually have that coaching experience where they're discovering things for themselves. Mm-hmm. So I think it's impacted me in that it's allowed me to create an environment, a way of coaching where there is that beautiful balance, and I create the space for the awareness without it, just because what I tended to notice was if you don't have that basic framework, the structure in place, my coaches would say they were holding my vision for me, but we would be all over the place. And then we don't get that sense of fulfillment that we're actually getting somewhere. We would have victories, we would have things going on, but with the structure and the framework, we know that that's holding it in place. So with the clients, we can really focus on raising the awareness. I also bring a lot of, combine a lot of positive thinking into the business side of things. So, it's got a little bit of that woo-woo-ness, some people would say, but it's got the nuts and bolts of business. So it's the marriage of the two, so that instead of me just telling people what to do, or this is how you do it, or this is the way you have to come up with it, and then they're not invested in it. They're invested in it, but it has the structure. So I don't know if that kind of came out cohesively, Alana. Mm-hmm. I think that's what makes my business different and how I work with clients different. Mm-hmm. That it's a blend of the two things, and the awareness is a big part of that.
Well, and it's interesting because watching you from a distance, I've seen a huge difference in you and how just how much more focused you've become, and how so much more grounded in your work, and just beaming love and joy into the world. Like, it's just so fun to be in your presence.
Mutual.
Thanks. All right. Well, I could talk to you about this for ages, but let's finish up. And I have 3 questions for you.
Okay.
If you could wave a magic wand and change anything about the world, what would it be?
Connection is really important to me, and also really my vision for the world is that women especially are making a living doing what they love. So if I could wave a magic wand, it would be that every woman and man, let's throw them in there too, right, would have a magic wand, was making a living doing what they love. Because I think when we do that, we have an impact on the world that's phenomenal, because then we have joyful, happy people that are excited to be making a difference, that are feeling on purpose. And I think from that, here we have peace and purpose in the world. So I think I would, the magic wand would be to every man and woman to be making a living, more than a living, doing what they love.
It's a nice vision. What brings you the most joy in your life right now?
What brings me the most joy? It's interesting because I have an acting background, and I was an actress for 20 years, and so very comfortable on the stage. And with her story, I was doing some visioning with the amazing life coach, Jessica Cole. And when I was doing the visioning work with her, a vision came in. It was like, what's your biggest vision for yourself or for your work? And I got this picture of me standing at the back of a theater with my arm on the railing, looking at this big, old-fashioned stage. And I was like, that's backwards. I'm supposed to be on the stage, not looking at an empty stage or someone else on a stage. And then that vision began to drip in, and I realized that then the Her Story Women's Conference materialized, and I realized how much joy I get from empowering women to tell their story and to stand up and get them to feel confident speaking and to tease the details out of them, because they're all so phenomenally interesting, but they just don't know it. And so I get a lot of joy. I mean, I get a joy out of everything I do, but I particularly found that that's a place where it surprised me for someone else to be in the spotlight and for me to help them with that instead of me being in the spotlight has been bringing me incredible joy.
That's neat. Yeah, I need to get Jessica on here. I need to do an interview with her. Okay, last question.
Okay.
What is one fun, interesting fact about you that makes you uniquely you?
Me, uniquely me. Okay. It's just fun, right? I love my hoodie footy. I have a leopard print hoodie footy with, of course, feet and hands, and it has ears, and it has a tail. And my happiest thing is to come home and put my hoodie footy on and be on the couch, all cozied up. And my daughter has a hoodie footy too. And I just love to be cozy and comfortable. It's one of my favorite things to do. So my hoodie footy brings me a lot of joy too.
That's so funny. And I love that it's leopard because it's got that little bit of sass in there.
Ears and a tail.
Nice. Nice. I want to see a picture.
I'll have to send one over.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Marianne. Thank you for your time and for sharing your beauty with the world. It's been an honor to talk with you today.
Oh, thank you so much, Alana. The feeling is, as I said, so mutual. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.